Yeah, the slide. Yeah, obviously, for those of you that doesn't know me, I'm Mattias Fridstro. I'm from Arelion. Many of you might ask what type of company is that, but we used to be called Telia Carrier, and we were sold 2021 from Telia. I think Telia never really loved us. They liked us. Telia loves mobile telephony. They liked us, but they decided to sell us and think they can use the money in a better way. So 2021 we left Telia, renamed ourselves to Arelion in 2022. So we've been on our own now for 3.5 years almost. So I'm going to give you some insights into what we see, where we are, who we are, what we do. This one came out in Veckans Affärer 2022. Something obviously we were very proud of. This is something we use, and this is kind of the way we are. No one really knows who we are, but there's a lot of stuff we do. But then funnily enough, a year ago, almost exactly to the day, a week ago, a Chinese boat cut our cable across the sea in the Baltics. And we ended up on every newspaper everywhere. And I spoke to about 100 journalists in a matter of a couple of days. I was participating in a police investigation in Estonia, another police investigation in Finland, a third one in Sweden, and they are still ongoing. The ship admitted a month ago that they did cut the cable. They say they didn't do it on purpose, but obviously you don't cut 4 cables in the Baltic Sea, by coincidence. The company we are today, we're running a network across some continents. Everything we do in Europe is based on half of our own fiber that we built almost 25 years ago, and half of it is leased from others. In US, we are very present, but we do lease everything there. We lease all the fibers in US and build a network on top of it. And everything we do in Asia is based on leased capacity. Really no one can afford to build their own network into Asia. Around 75,000-80,000 kilometers of fiber across these continents, and obviously the biggest thing we do is serving the sort of internet world with connectivity to others. Then obviously we sell capacity services on top of that, and we do some other stuff, but that's sort of the most important thing we do. And if you look at the traffic we have, we passed the 100 terabit mark last year, almost 13 months ago. Which is obviously very big, because I think we are the only one in the world that have passed that number. And now I talk about the internet connectivity at the edge. We obviously have more traffic in the network that we sell to other operators and so on. I checked the other day, and we actually passed 150 terabits just a few days ago. So traffic is growing right now enormously. If I look year on year, comparing yesterday to yesterday a year ago, we have grown 35%. So there is a growth out there. I think actually we take some market share because some of our competitors are not doing very well at the moment. They're consolidating and other things. So it's not that we just take on normal growth, but there is growth out there, which is good. A company that lives on traffic growth, of course, this is important for us. If you look at the traffic distribution, that one to the top right is changing as we speak. And as you can see, North America starts to become more and more important for us. We are growing a lot there, but obviously we are growing in the rest of the world as well. You can see there's something called SAT, that's sort of special accounts. That's where you find the hyperscalers. So of course, they are a big portion of the traffic we do on the internet. 10 largest customers consume more than 30% of our traffic. So of course we are very dependent on a number of companies that carries a lot of traffic in there. Traffic in the Nordics, if I look at the Nordics alone, you can see that it's almost been identical the last year. It's not growing, it's not declining. What I talk about here is of course only the traffic that we see in our network. So it doesn't sort of reflect the overall market, it only reflects us. But since we are quite a big portion of the internet, then of course these type of numbers are probably somewhat what goes on in the market as well. I just need to show this one. You probably were in this one as well. Most of you early in the year when Fortnite launched the new game, you could start to play the old platform again, where everyone in Europe thought this was the biggest DDoS attack ever for a number of hours. And I think this sort of reflects something really cool. When you can ask, if you can ask all teenagers in Europe to download the same thing at once, you can practically take down the internet. And you know, if you would sort of tell the criminals that that's absolutely the best way to do that, then this is a fantastic example of how that planned out. I just need to mention it because for us it was such a refreshing thing to feel that, yeah, internet is still quite vulnerable and you need to take care of it, and it's important that everyone cares about how it's run. This one, I actually stole this slide. We have a board presentation in a week, and part of that is doing our strategy for 2025. And I just stole one of that slides from that package to show you what the board will see. They haven't even seen this. I hope they're not here, because, but they haven't really seen that what we will show them. But this is what we believe is going to happen in the future when we tell the board as a sort of very short summary, where of course the geopolitical tension is very strong, and we see it every day. We have more and more customers asking us almost on a daily basis, is this traffic bypassing Israel? Do you have any customers in Iran? How do you treat North Korea? Where is your traffic going to and from Ukraine? Those type of questions. We never really talked about that before, but that happens almost on a daily basis right now. We have the power situation, where at least the hyperscalers, but many more are after more power for AI, and power is not really where the networks are. Before, you could have a question before, is there a good fiber connectivity to this place because there's enough power here? Today, I feel that they just buy because there's a lot of power there, and then fibers and cables have to come afterwards. That's something we will tell the board, that we probably need more money to build more cables to places we would never think of building to before. The fundamental growth is still there, which is good. There's a lot of traffic still out there, which is very good. Artificial intelligence, we have started to see signs of a lot of traffic from that one, but we believe that in 2025, 2026, there will be a lot more traffic on the internet for that demand, and obviously it's going to be important for ourselves to use that as building our tools and systems in a much smarter way. And then of course the enterprises. We start to see enterprises buying directly from a tier one like us. That's sort of never happened before. They bought from someone else who bought from us. Now they come and buy directly from us, which is very new to us and something we need to consider going forward. We believe we are well positioned. That's obviously what we're telling the board. It would be stupid not to, but but we believe that there is a difference between US and Europe. US is growing faster. They're more interested in new technologies, but Europe will come. There is growth in Europe, especially in Western Europe, and that's something we will have to consider. The next one is about competitors. We've seen some competitors in Europe really going away from selling internet services to only selling capacity and infrastructure services, especially fiber services. If you have a lot of money, you're owned by a venture capitalist, then you can really cash in on the fiber situation right now, because there is a big fiber demand in Europe. There's an even bigger demand in US, but there are no fibers in US. So that's their problem. It's a big problem in US. There's a lot of fibers in the city that they built for 5G, but there is no long distance fiber in US. Big problem. So no one can really capture that market. We mentioned Colt and Cogent. Colt is very busy in Europe, sort of digesting Lumen. For us in the IP world, that's obviously good. When they come out of that merger, they will be very strong. They're a good competitor. But right now, we can take advantage of that type of chaos they have. Cogent bought the Sprint network in US and have a big focus on US right now, kind of not focusing on Europe at all. And of course, all of this combined is in some way good for Arelion and good to tell the board. And then technology changes. We talk about this ZR technology. That is a fantastic way to build cheaper IP networks for us. We will use that. We're already using it big time, but we will use it even more going forward. Okay, some more statistics, some more things inside. This one is from the DDoS world. Again, we probably have between 15 and 17% of the traffic on the global internet ourselves in our network, so we see a lot of things in here. And of course, the way we run our network, there is an interest from a lot of companies to hear about what we see and so on. So everything I will show you later on is statistics from our own network. That doesn't mean that that reflects the world's network, but it reflects what we see on the network. We've seen this earlier today as well, when someone said that the peak attacks continue to grow. We have seen big attacks this year. There are the odd attacks that goes into the terabits. It's not usual. The average attack, as you can see, is only 11 gig. But we start to see some enormous attacks out there. There is a global decrease in large volumetric attacks. I'll show you on the next one how many attacks we have. There is a slight increase in the number of attacks, but these large volumetric attacks are actually decreasing. And the same thing with the packets per second attacks. They come and they disappear very quickly. There's a lot of them trying to do a lot of things in there, but they try. And the duration of the attack is really down. We can see that there's a lot of tests out there. You know, you run an attack for 30 seconds and then it doesn't work, then you give up and you do another try 5 minutes later somewhere else. So these are the main trends we see in the DDoS world. When we look at the number of attacks, there is a slight increase. If you look at sort of the average day attack until the end of August here. If you would have asked me in December 22, I would have said that no, there is actually a decline in the number of attacks that we see in our network, but unfortunately it starts to go up a day again. That mad day in October was apparently an attack on some financial systems. There was something in the financial world that changed that day, and everyone tried to attack the financial world on the same day. That's why you have that enormous peak in there. The Russia and Ukraine situation hasn't really helped, and I'll show you a bit more on that later on. We heard others speak about this, but obviously when you look at the number of attacks in our network, that's what you see, and obviously the volume attacks are by far the most popular and the ones that we see the most in our network. You just simply try to overload something in the network. If you do it with bots or other ways, yeah, that's simply the biggest one. The network protocol attacks is the number 2. Then there's a bunch of variants of these things in there, but the majority of all the attacks are simply the volumetric attacks. What we have seen is that, botnets are very popular, but we see that people are starting to use sort of servers instead of, the odd device, if you can use someone's refrigerator, that's good, but we can start to see that the attackers are trying to find more powerful things in the network. A feeling we have is that actually people are becoming better in protecting their own thing. I think people in general are changing passwords, people are, and so on. So we see some good signs, but of course, this is still a problematic world where you use other resources to help in your attacks. This is probably not new to anyone, but most attacks are done on Sundays. And early hours or late hours, no real news here. This is what we see. Obviously, out of office hours, you're more vulnerable. You don't have anyone to protect you, and so on. So, of course, that's what we see when we look at these attacks. As we have a global footprint and we also have customers in more than 130 countries around the world, we have a fairly good feeling for where the attacks really are. And as you can see there, Panama, funny enough, Panama is the most attacked country that we see. And it's because all the banks. There's a lot of banks there, there's a lot of transactions there, a lot of financial institutes are in Panama. Maybe the system is not the best and the most sort of efficient setup there. So of course, there are more attacks there. The other ones are more kind of common and the way you would guess it. Poland is in there pretty much because of the Russia-Ukraine war, and I'll show you more details on Poland in the going forward. But of course, this is something we keep track of. This is something we share with some governments around in the world, and they are very interested in where where things are happening and where it's going on and so on, and we can obviously help you as if you're customers as well to help you protect you. We are the only Western company in the world with our own network in Russia and our own staff in Russia. And you can imagine what happened in February 2022 when the war broke out and the interest in our network there. We probably run more than half of the traffic in and out of Russia today, and there's an enormous interest in that. The good thing is that both EU, US, UK want the traffic to be up and running. It's really important for the Russian population to at least have a chance to see Western media, read about Western things. And the Russians are equally interested in having the traffic up so that they at least can speak to the Western world and have that communication up and running. In the beginning, we felt, someone is going to cut these cables day one, and we will lose all connectivity. That has still not happened, and we don't believe it's going to happen. So this is important. We feel we have an important mission to keep connectivity up and running between Russia and the Western world. What you see on the top right side, you see who is attacking who. There is obviously a war on the ground outside, but there is also a cyber war between them. And we follow this very careful and report this to some authorities around the world to show them in what direction attacks are going. Most of the attacks on Ukraine come from Russia themselves, but also a few other countries. You can probably guess who they are. While the attacks towards Russia comes from absolutely everywhere in the world, and a lot of them from US, obviously. It's pretty much a 50-50 spread. We have seen that the attacks in these cases have actually moved more towards the west, and that's a bit blurry, but we can see that, as you know, Ukraine moved out all their governmental servers to Ireland and Helsinki, so there is practically nothing left in Kiev, so there is nothing really you can attack there. All of that is moved. It's duplicated and moved. But we've seen enormous amounts of attack on Poland. And there is something, we are helping the Polish government, we're doing everything we can to help them being protected, but right now there's, and that graph I believe is until, it's somewhere into February this year, but if I extend that graph, it still keep on going. There is even more attacks to Poland right now. We haven't seen any other country close to Ukraine that's seen the same thing. And we believe that it's because there's a lot of things in Poland where they help the Ukrainian government with some stuff, that therefore there's a lot of attacks in that direction. We do a report every year, so if someone wants to read the report, you can download it from our homepage. You can see then the attacks inside our company and what we see and so on. Something that we haven't really thought about before, but is now becoming more and more evident, is the physical security. Almost all traffic is run in cables. That's our cables around in Europe. There are many companies that have similar size of networks and similar cable sizes. And in our world, we have been extremely transparent over the years. If anyone have asked for a map, you give them the map. If anyone wants details where the cables are, you give them the details. I think Sweden, it wasn't a long time ago where in Ledningskollen you could practically ask for all the cables in Stockholm and you would receive the maps of all the cables in Stockholm. That one is now closed much better, and you can only really, if you have a valid question, you only receive the cables around where you actually can ask the question. That's good. But the world is still extremely transparent. You have companies who says, we won't buy from you unless you show us the map. And then combine that with the now sabotage. We've seen sabotage in France, we've seen it in the Baltics now, we've seen it in other places. So of course we want to hide every cable we have. We don't want anyone to know where they are. There are some amplifier stations out, you would never even think that's a building that has something interesting in them, and I would like it to be that way. If I put a barbed wire fence around it, then suddenly it sounds like, ooh, that's something interesting in there. So this is the biggest problem I would say we have in our industry right now. How do we do the physical security and still keep the transparency? Because of course I understand the customer can't really buy away from us, away from Sunet, and away from Global Connect, and away from Colt, if they're all goes in the same cable. They need to know where they are. I understand that. But it's hard. If you can't really show them the map and you can't do that, then, oh, this is going to be tricky. And historically, we've really sent our maps to absolutely everyone. This level is fine, but if you go into further details, then it should not really be fine. And then, of course, when the war started, that drew the attention. There's a lot of attention in the Baltics. Of course, they're a bit worried. They are very close to Russia. What's going to happen in there? We had the sabotage on our cable right in the middle of the Baltic Sea, 58 kilometers out to the sea. We have a lot of cables around there, but what's going on right now is that we're trying to find, oh, we had a cable here like 30 years ago. Maybe we can reuse that one. It should probably still work. So right now we're finding cables in the Baltic Sea that we have practically said it's unusable. It only has 6 fiber pairs and it's old fibers. But yeah, if we can run traffic on that one, it will increase the diversity and we will use it. So there will be some new routes. There will be some new use cases for some cables. I'm sure there will be more cables in here. It needs to be more cables. Most cables in the Baltics were built in the late 90s. They're still in very good shape, most of them. A cable that's been on the bottom of the sea, if it has never really been repaired, it's almost in the same condition as when you laid it. So that's really good. If you have repaired it a number of times, obviously that's not good. And a cable that's been on the bottom of the sea for 35 years is also very fragile. When you repair it, you probably need to be very careful. But as you understand, we repaired the cable when the Chinese ship hit the cable, and the cable itself, we measured it, and it's actually almost identical to what it was in 1995 when it was laid. So still works, latest Sienna equipment on it. We run 400 gigs, perfect, everything works really well. But this is something that every carrier right now is looking for. Are there any cables we can reuse? This cable was deemed sort of unusable. Maybe we can use it again. So something we work on a long time. Then you also know that we have this European program, the CEF program, that's now funding sea cables. And of course, that's going to be used for increasing and building maybe more cables. I think even the land route, everyone said, you know, going from Helsinki to Stockholm over land, it's far too long. No one will ever use that. That's ridiculous. Don't use it. That is actually a very interesting route right now, and everyone wants to. If we would have fibers there, we could have sold them easily. So in summary, traffic is still growing, which is good. I think all of us in here live on traffic growth, so that's good. We need that. We hope AI will generate enormous amounts of new traffic. That would be great. Sometimes I think AI is only going to be inside data centers or between data centers close to each other, but there are signs that there is a need even going to data centers from central points and so on. I think when 5G came around 5 years ago, everyone said, oh great, that's going to be so much traffic. I don't think we've seen a packet at all from 5G in the carrier world. That all stays local, super local. I don't think we've even turned on 5G in Europe, I guess. I heard someone from Ericsson said it's a symbol in your phone, but that's it. It's kind of 4G on different frequencies. So DDoS attacks are unfortunately something we have to deal with. They're slightly increasing, but I think the world is doing well here. I also think, you know, there's a small working group. There's a few tier ones and some hyperscalers that works together right now. I think that's worked really, really well. And I think some attacks we can steer away almost before they happen because sharing information. 3-4 years ago, we would never share information. We would all deal with them ourselves and then complain and be angry at each other. Now we work together, so that's really, really good. And I think that's very helpful. And then the physical security we have to think about. I know there are some companies already in Sweden that don't hand out maps anymore. But I also know that they hand out maps to special customers. So, of course, that's something we all have to deal with. In some way we need to do it, and in some way we don't want to do it. So, but that's, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that pans out. And with that, I kind of thank you. I gave you a small insight into the world we live in. Sweden's most unfamous company that became famous for a sea cable in the Baltic Sea. All right. Any questions?
There was one from Menti. Someone wants to know. This is of course related to the war, where they want to know your stance on censorship. You spoke about keeping traffic up, but this is specifically the EU pushing to restrict, for example, RT.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We have, in some way, we feel we're only a connectivity provider, and we don't care who's using it and what they're using it for, and so on. So our role is to keep connectivity up, and it's someone else's role to decide who should use it and who should not use it. So we've decided to keep everything up and running. The good thing here is that we have very good support from the US government, the UK government, and the EU government, where they keep telling us, you know, it's important that it's up and running. It's important that the Russian population at least have an opportunity to find. We know it's all censored, and we know what's happening. If you turn in facebook.com in Moscow, it's probably not going to go up. You're not reaching Facebook, you're reaching V-Kontakte. But for us, it's important to do that and keep that up and running, keep the flow of traffic flying. When we stop speaking to each other, that's when it becomes dangerous. So, and we kind of feel that. And I think, you know, there were some Americans that announced that they will withdraw from Russia. I don't think they've done that. They keep up their traffic as well.
Any more questions for Mattias? Okay. Well, please join me in thanking Mattias for a fantastic presentation. Thank you so much.